So, good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and the results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. So good morning, everyone. Continue to investigate the 11 wholesome dharmas. I'm just thinking, just listing them. I was practicing memorizing them before. So first one is faith or trust. The second one is virya or vigor, energy, strength sometimes. The third one is, or the next two are hiri-ottappa, inner and outer integrity. The next three are the opposites of the three poisons. So non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. That's 7. Next is light ease, Jingwei Shu talked about yesterday. Number 8. Vigilance, talked about before, number 9. Equanimity, upeksha, number 10. And not harming, ahimsa, number 11. And in the Yogacara teachings, they say that these wholesome dharmas are actually active in every moment of wholesome cultivation, except for light ease. Light ease happens, you could say, when we're really meditating very diligently, and we kind of enter a kind of very relaxed and light state. As Jingwei Shu talked about yesterday, this state we can maybe not be in the full state of light ease, but we can cultivate the seeds of it. So I just wanted to point to that because I wanted to share about vigor today, about virya, and we want to understand this wholesome quality in the context that is part of a whole network of wholesome qualities. I remember starting out thinking that vigor was just working really hard. And there's a lot of energy. And I remember when I was doing sessions at CTB, of course there's a Guanyin session, and I'd feel sleepy during the sits. So what would I do right before the sit? I'd go outside the Buddha hall and I'd run like laps to get myself really vigorous, energetic. The problem with this method is that, you can kind of push yourself for so long, but I think at one point my body just kind of stopped really functioning that well. So that's one kind of vigor, which is this, just pushing things. But this kind of vigor is when it's working with all these other wholesome qualities, has a balance, has a steadiness, has a kind of persevering quality. And so I like how Ajahn Jayasaro defined it when he came to DRBU to speak about Buddhist education. He said, it's not giving up. And he actually had a fun little story. He said, because he was setting up these schools and he wanted to set up virtues for the school. He said, Buddhism also has a reputation for being kind of soft and passive. You're nice, you're kind, you're gentle, you're patient. He says, but I really wanted to give the students this kind of spirit of, strength. And so it says, to telling the teachers, what we want to have is a motto: Buddhists never give up. Buddhists never give. You tell the kids, the first graders, the second graders, Buddhists never give up. So when you meet a difficulty, you say, Buddhists never give up. We'll make it to the end. So there's this kind of toughness, you could say. So Buddhists are tough. We're kind, but we're tough. We never give up. Oh, that's a nice way to look at vigor, is that just the spirit of not giving up. And there's this kind of story that whenever I think of vigor comes to my kind of mind's eye. It was told by Reverend Hung Sher in the lecture times quite often. And he says that at one time at Gold Mountain Monastery, they're doing the kind of renovations for basic earthquake retrofitting. So a lot of work. They're turning this mattress factory into a monastery. They have drywall and, extra reinforcement, all these things. And there's a stairway going up to the top. At one point, they're all really tired doing all this work. And they had all this wood and materials out on the ground, the bottom floor, got delivered, and there's stacks of it. And everyone's just really tired, just looking at all the wood and just going to bring upstairs, just kind of looking at it. Like, I don't know about this project. It's just a lot of work. And he said in the middle of the people just kind of sitting around looking at all the work to do, Master Hua comes running into the hall. He says running in. He says he's wearing one of his very lightweight precept sashes, and so it's got kind of tied up. And he says he's running to the wood, and he grabs the piece of wood, a huge piece of wood, and he starts running up the stairs by himself. And he says as he's running up the stairs with this huge piece of wood, he's yelling, "Jing, jing, jing, jing," which means vigor in Chinese. He says everyone's just watching Master Hua. He's taking a big piece of board and runs up the stairs, up on top, puts it down, comes down, and just yelling, "Vigor!" the whole time. And the guys, all of them look at each other like, I don't know what we can say. They get up and they all start working, The two of them pick up a board, they're getting up the stairs. I just remember that image because it's just this kind of spirit of like, we're gonna do this. We don't give up, And so when times get tough, I sometimes just have that image in my heart of Master Hua going like full force into the work. And I thought actually that also relates a little bit to our work here at the monastery, especially at Reverend Vihara, where we're doing more renovation work. And I actually see that vigor in the community. When it's time to meet, there's actually a real enthusiasm to gather together and support the monastery. It's not like people are dragging their feet and kind of going, okay, the Dharma masters are forcing me to do this, so okay, I'll do it. It's like, no, this is wonderful. There's a kind of joy. It's like this vigor has an enthusiasm to it, a kind of real kind of delight. An enthusiasm to do good, and also an enthusiasm to not do harm, And I think this is an actually very important virtue for current times, because we can often give up in despair sometimes looking at the state of the world. Right now, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and here in California, there's, rising cases, so people are more, feeling perhaps trapped at home, not able to see loved ones and friends. And, the weather is still kind of topsy-turvy. We got through the wildfire seasons, but still there's, famine, earthquakes, water, disasters, hurricanes, and just kind of man-made disasters on top of that. And we can just kind of despair thinking, gosh, I don't know about this world. And all the injustices that we might see, and the pain that humans cause on each other, sometimes in families. There's, alcoholism, or, people commit adultery, or there's just a lot of suffering that can happen. Parents fighting with each other, children not talking to their parents. And we can just kind of go, this is hopeless. This world is hopeless. My family's hopeless. I am hopeless. I just kind of give up in despair. And I think here, vigor is really a kind of antidote to this kind of despair. I think all the wholesome dharmas working together really help. Like, for instance, faith too. But this vigor is this kind of enthusiasm, this willingness to work hard regardless of the situation. I'm just going to put my best effort forward. And if I put my best effort forward this moment, and the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment, without fear of how things are going to turn out, I know that I put my best effort forward right now. And I have confidence in that. And I trust that things will work out. And there's a very, another story that I remember that was very touching, is a story about, I think, the Buddha's past life, when he was a little bird, and the forest caught on fire. And all the animals ran for cover, ran for safety. Of course, some couldn't get away. And the birds, of course, flew away immediately. And they flew over to a kind of big lake area where they would be protected from the fire that was just raging. This little bird saw all the beings suffering. He thought, gosh, there's just so much suffering. I have to help. I have to help save these other living beings. And I have to protect the forest. So he flies to the lake, and he gets himself a little bit wet, and he gets some water in his beak, and he flies over to the fire, and he sprinkles the little water he has onto the fire, and then the water comes down and immediately evaporates. Gone. Okay, goes back, flies down, gets some more water, and sprinkles, and just flies back and forth, back and forth. And the story goes that Lord Chakra sees this little bird. He looks at this little bird. What are you doing? He says, I'm trying to put out the fire. He says, you're so small. The fire is so big. It's a hopeless cause. What are you doing? And the bird goes, no, people or beings are suffering. I have to save them. So Chakra says, so how long are you going to do this for? He says, I don't care if I need to give up my life. Until I die, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to make it. I'm going to put out the fire. And Lord Chakra goes, really? On what basis do you make that claim? Prove it, basically. And the bird says, okay, by the power of my vow, of my intention, I'm going to put out this fire. This fire is going to stop. And so by his vow, it said that those beings in the heaven of purity, even higher than Lord Chakra, where those who have realized a certain level of awakening go when they pass away. They saw this vow, they heard this vow of this little bird, and from their spiritual abilities, they put out the fire. And then that fire became a safe place. And it's a kind of a fun story, but to say that when we give it our all, you can say magical things happen, things that we can't conceive of. Because when we go into despair, we're just thinking about things from our little frame of mind, how we think things should be and how they're not that way. But we just let that go and say, I'm just going to apply my full heart in this moment, doing good and letting go of what's bad. And do that moment to moment and just trusting in you could say the Dharma, trusting in the triple jewel, trusting in the universe. Magical things happen. And I think this is where in our daily recitation we have this line in Samantabhadra's Practices and Vows saying that my practices will not end until empty space ends. till living beings end, to the afflictions of living beings end, to the karma of living beings end. Until those end, which will never end, my practices will not end. And when you think about it, on one perspective, you can go, wow, this is hopeless. Living beings won't stop suffering. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just kind of give up now because it's too much. But to me, what those when we say those words as we're reciting, as we're practicing, it's actually to say, in this moment, right now, because it's thought after thought without cease, I will never weary of these deeds. That's what the verse goes. So in this moment of practice, if I make my intention so vast that it pervades empty space, breaks through time, then what I'm doing is I'm deepening this moment, this present moment. You see, this eternal moment in the present. And my sense is that this is when we start to open up to this bodhisattva heart, that's able to help and support living beings endlessly. We throw away the watch, thinking, okay, when am I going to get enlightened? And only when I get enlightened will things be okay. So no, in this moment, I'm going to make my aspiration service to all beings to the end of time, in all places, everywhere. And I'm going to do that moment to moment to moment. And then there's like a fearless quality. There's a courage that comes from that, because, this is my resolve. And I know that I'm not doing this on my own. I am relying on the strength of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Samantabhadra's practices and vows. And this becomes my place of vigor in the practice. So today, I hope everyone can really apply this Dharma of vigor as much as you can. As I said, moment to moment if you can. Don't give up, whatever you're doing. Things might be tough, but just keep going. I know a lot of people have been very vigorous following us on these talks for the last, almost 2 years, I think, and joining the ceremony. So that's definitely vigor. Okay, so, jing jing. Let's do 3 steps on bow. Yeah, the tone's important. Vigor.
Let's bow.
Let's bow. Yeah. So let's bow.